Hey everyone, I hope everyone is doing good and taking good care of themselves. So, today on the Consciousness Dialogue, I'm thrilled to welcome Angela Ford, one of the original US Army remote viewers who served in the top secret project Stargate. And Angela's work, basically in a way bridged military intelligence and the unseen dimension of human consciousness. And she has helped track a lot of hostages, fugitives, and foreign targets using mind and intuition alone. So today, Angela still continues to work as a researcher and a teacher, exploring perception, non-local awareness, and the untapped potential of human consciousness. Angela has witnessed phenomena that are astonishing, and of course we've got great deal of things to learn from that. And sometimes it's even chilling also, the kind of experiences that she has. And I mean, to sum it up, it's always been transformative for her, and her sharing her experiences with us is transformative for us as well. So without any delay, let me welcome Angela, thank you so much. I'm really honored to have you. Welcome.
I'm honored to be here, and thank you for asking me to be on your program. It's an honor to be
Thank
here.
you
Thank
so
you.
much. Thank you so much, Angela. I had been following your work from past 3 years. I mean, I personally had a lot of experiences, and whenever I used to, turn to religion, for answers, I was, literally traumatized, to sum it up, because they never had any proper answer, and it was always seen as possession, demonic possession, influence, and blah blah blah. And it used to get dismissed. But I don't know, things transformed when I had my own near death experience, out of body experience. And when I got into psychology, then later on I jumped into parapsychology, and I started exploring. I mean, it was basically my quest, and you can say that curiosity that was driving me to find answers. Because from religious leaders, you just get those stereotypical answers that, sweetie, you are possessed, sweetie, there's some influence, some genie is there. So, Angela, I would want to know, how did you first discover your intuitive capacities, and what led you, I mean, with that recruitment into the Stargate program? Angela.
Well, I always knew I had the abilities because as a very young child, I had out of body experiences. I mean, I'm
Wow.
not, it was before I was 6 years old. I mean, I can remember going out of body. Now, as I got a little bit older, I can remember having certain dreams that I
Mhm.
would tell my mother about, and then she would kind of watch. She would listen to me, so we would kind of watch to see if they would come true. But I felt like I had this ability. I know I had it when I was very young. Now, because of the ability, I was very interested in the. I always was interested in the field. I'd like to explore it. I can remember being a teenager and reading about ESP experiments done by a man by the
Wow.
name of Harold Sherman, who was a pilot, and he was exploring the Antarctic, and he was making airplane trips over the Arctic, and he was always afraid that if something were to happen and he would get in a plane wreck, and if his equipment didn't work, he was doing ESP tests with the person on the ground to find out if they could pick up if he was in danger or not. So he would come back from a trip, and then he would talk to the gentleman or who he was working with, and they would say, "Well, I got this at this time and this," so they could compare. I can remember reading all of that. I can remember just being interested in it because I knew that certain things had happened to me.
Mhm.
Now, I didn't talk about it much. I led a very normal life. Now, when I graduated from college, I was unemployed, and there was a night class that was being offered. It was an ESP, extrasensory perception night class that was being offered for $35 for maybe 8 weeks. And it was
Wow.
given by a chemistry professor that was hired by the local university. And this man was psychic, and he taught the night class. He taught a night class on ESP. Now, I met the man, I liked the class, but I had to quit the class because I received the nighttime job that because I had to work, because I had to make money, because I was moving from Pennsylvania, where I was born and raised, to Washington, D.C. to work for the FBI. So I quit the ESP class and went to work. And then eventually, about a couple of months later, I came to work for the FBI. When I started to work for the FBI, the pay was low. I wanted to be an agent, but I didn't have the eyesight. And I was working with a woman whose husband was in Army intelligence. She eventually left the FBI to go work with her husband. When she left the FBI, she contacted me and she said that Army intelligence is looking for people that have political science degrees, which I have, because they're looking for analysts. They're looking for intelligence analysts, civilian, not military, civilian. And
Mhm.
she said, you should apply because I met the requirements. So I did apply and I got the job. So I was put on an internship for about 2 or 3 years. I was put on an internship. And after the internship, you get a job. Then they place you where they think you should be. So because of my political science background, they put me more as an analyst, country analyst. Dealing with diplomacy, politics, military strategies. And so I worked there. So I was working as an analyst. I made some money. The pay was getting better. Now, I did not realize it at the time, but Army intelligence, and I entered the Army intelligence. It must have been 81, 82, because I think I was at the FBI from 79 to 1981. So what I did is when I went into for my intern program, it must have been, I don't know, 80, 81, and then you receive
Mhm.
this job. Well, what I didn't realize at the time that I started working for as an analyst, that Army intelligence was responsible. They had they were responsible. They had a collection unit, an intelligence collection unit located at Fort Meade, Maryland, which was in a very private off location, of people, of psychics, that was collecting. They called themselves remote viewers, and they were collecting information for the intelligence community. Now, I did not know that, because that program at that time was considered a special access program, meaning if I did not have a need to know that that program existed, I was not going to know that it existed. Okay. Now,
Mhm.
this is what I came to understand later on how this all came about. The CIA were using psychics. They were doing mind control on people. They were under the program MK Ultra. Now, they were
Ah.
giving psychics LSD. They were doing mind control, and they were altering the state of a person's mind to see if you were give a person drugs, could they perform better psychically? Well, apparently, I think one or two people, I think, committed suicide. So Congress came in and told they shut it down. They shut down the MK Ultra program. Now in the early 70s, 1973, 1974, 1975, there's there's intelligence reports going around that the Soviet Union, the former Soviet Union, is into this parapsychology research big time, putting a lot of money into it. They have their own psychics. Well, there was a man by the name of Jack Verona who was picking up who received his doctorate's degree at Duke University down in South Carolina. He was dating a woman whose mother, who would later become his mother-in-law, was working for a parapsychology team. They were husband and wife, and they were running parapsychology tests and doing paranormal research at Duke. So this was his exposure to it. So when he graduated, when he received his doctorate's degree, he was hired by the CIA as a chief scientist. At that time, he was curious is if could you use psychics to gather intelligence information, but he also, as a scientist, he wanted to know how did this work. So he gave Stanford Research Institute out in Palo Alto, California. There were two scientists out there who were heavily involved in the research of remote view of how of remote viewing being psychic, and they were working. They were a lot of information they were receiving was coming from China. China was testing children, and children had precognitive abilities, and when they were translating what the Chinese children were saying, that the children were saying, I remote view, I view remotely, or I see remotely. So that's how the term remote viewing came about. So when
Wow.
Dr. Verona was at the CIA, he was a young man, chief scientist. He handed a couple of cheap, not a lot of money, but he went to SRI and said, "What are you doing in the field? What are you finding out? What's going on?" Well, then in the meantime, there was a man by the name of Dale Graff, who Dale happens to be very psychic, and he was working for the Foreign Technology Division in Ohio. Now, Dale was receiving a lot of intelligence reports, in foreign technology. What are our enemies doing? What are they doing as far as technology to collect information against their enemies? Well, Dale was receiving a lot of these intelligence reports saying that the Soviets are heavily involved in parapsychology work and research. So he was sending Dr. Verona the reports. So I think Dale, then Dr. Verona left CIA and he went to the Defense Intelligence Agency. And then Dale was down in Ohio, and I think his bosses, Dale was able to receive a sabbatical. They were going to allow, his management was going to allow him to take a sabbatical for a year and do a scientific project. And Dale wanted to go to Stanford Research Institute, Princeton, and Duke University to find out what they were doing in parapsychology research. And I think Dale was very interested in psychokinesis. Well, when Dale's management found out what he wanted to do with his year off, they rescinded they said, no, you're not going to have the year. We don't want. They took it away. So when Dr. Verona heard that, he told Dale, well, why don't you just come to Washington and work for me? So I think Dr. Verona kind of shifted Dale from Ohio to DC. So you had Dr. Verona at the Defense Intelligence Agency giving out small contracts to Stanford Research. You had Dale Graff at the Defense Intelligence Agency. He's looking at what are these countries doing. So that was the Defense Intelligence Agency. Now, in the meantime, there was a young man by the name of Fred Atwater. We called him Skip. He was a military captain, and he was working at the Pentagon, and he was working for one of the Joint Chief of Staff. And this man was the Joint Chief of Staff for intelligence. And I don't know what made Skip interested in parapsychology, but I'm sure he has his own story to tell. So he kept telling this one general who was the Joint Chief of Staff for intelligence, we should try psychics to see if we can gather information. The Soviets are doing it. And because the general, the Joint Chief, because he was the head of intelligence, he tasked the Intelligence and Security Command of the Army. He said, okay, he told go find some psychics and test them, and let's see what they can come up with. Well, that's how it came under. So the psychics or the remote viewer, they were under the Department of Army. So you had two agencies involved. You had the Defense Intelligence Agency that were more concerned about the scientific research. They were interested in what other countries were doing, and then the Army intelligence took responsibility to try to find people who could do this. Well, I guess Skip Atwater was all part of that. But when the Army started to use psychics, they were using them on a part-time basis. There was an old building at Fort Meade. In fact, I think it was a pre-World War I building, not even pre-World War II. And they were bringing people up there on a part-time basis. I think they were testing them, they were probably replicating some of the Stanford Research Institute's protocols. And that was being done by the Department of Army. Now, in 1976, somebody was looking, there was a downed U.S. plane, and I don't know where it was, if it was in Africa, but they asked the remote viewers if it was the first operation and apparently a remote viewer found this airplane. And because of that success, the Department of Army decided to use remote viewers on a full-time basis. Now, whoever the general is, there's always a general that's the head of a command. But these generals rotate. There could be a general there for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, then they rotate out. And then another general comes in, and they're there for how many years? And then another general comes in. Well, in 1982 or 1983, a general came in, and his name happened to be General Bert Stubblebine. Now, General Stubblebine, he was the head of the training facility, the training command in Arizona. It was called Fort Huachuca, Arizona. Well, he had an interest in parapsychology because he bent spoons. He was a spoon bender. And what
Oh,
the
yes.
general he wanted military people to expand their mind, expand their consciousness. So when he came into Army intelligence, he inherited the remote viewers. So he had his own thing going out at Fort Huachuca. He had a right-hand man with him, Dr. John Alexander. He brought John with him, and John was very, he walked on fire. And if people watch if they ever see the movie Men Who Stare at Goats, they were part of that. But so now General Stubblebine comes in, and he's very open about what he does. He's inherited these remote viewers. So now General Stubblebine he's very open. He comes in, he wants to know who has the abilities. He's looking for people with this kind of talent. And on weekends, he would take people down to the Monroe Institute, the Monroe Institute, founded by Bob Monroe. Bob Monroe went out of body. He thought he was a radio personality in New York City, and he started to go out of body, and he didn't know what was going on with him. But he founded this Monroe Institute down in Virginia, where people can go and study, I guess, how to be out of body, or to open you up so you can have these psychic experiences. Well, General Stubblebine said whoever was interested, that a bus would take people down on a Friday night and bring them back on a Sunday evening. And it was, I think, a 2 or 3 hour drive from, DC down in that area. So General Stubblebine was very open about this. Well, it was at that time that I had learned that there was a program like this, and I was just floored. I just didn't know it. But it was also at the time, I must have been 29 or 30 years old. It was also the time that I started to open up more psychically.
Wow.
I was reading books. My father had died. My mother was in Pennsylvania. She wanted to do something to take a class. She was taking this psychic class up at the university that I had to quit. So there was a lot of elements in play. My father had died. My mother was taking a class. My mother was trying to help me through my grief. I was searching. So it's all of a sudden, whatever shook me up, it I started to identify what was ever going on with me. I was psychic. So I met with General Stubblebine, and I was hoping to get in the program, but he was getting ready to retire. This was in 1984. He was retiring because the man at the Joint Chief of Staff was leaving his job. So General Stubblebine, once that man at the Pentagon, the Joint Chief, once he left that position, then the psychic program was not receiving the support that it should have had, because whoever took this man's place, whatever Joint Chief took this man's place, they didn't have the interest in it. They just didn't have the interest. So now the DIA, the Defense Intelligence Agency, that had nothing to do with the Joint Chief because he was only a head of Army. So the DIA, the Defense Intelligence, they could go on with their research. They could go on with their foreign assessment. Nothing stopped them. Nothing was stopping them. But because of the general at the Pentagon, who was the head of the Army Intelligence Command, he left. And the man that took his place was just not supportive of the psychic remote viewers. So I think, and that's why General Stubblebine, I think, wanted to retire. So he
Mhm.
retired, and I thought, well, there you go. I thought any chances of being there, I would not get there. What I didn't realize was once General Stubblebine retired, people working at Fort Meade, the military officers, were sitting around and everybody was waiting for their next assignment. If they were going to close the program, well, these people needed a job. So they were just waiting to say, well, you're going to go here or you're going to go here. They were waiting for orders to be reassigned. Well, at that time, Dr. Jack Barona went to Congress and he told Congress, don't shut the program down. Just transfer the remote viewers, the psychics, transfer them from Army intelligence to the DIA. So that's what happened. So the remote viewers were able to stay at Fort Meade. They didn't have to move. All whatever the Army had, whatever bodies they had, where they were working, everything was just transferred to the Defense Intelligence Agency. Now, that would have been in 1984. That transfer probably took about a year. And then in January 1986, I was approached by the office to get a job there. And that's how I got there.
Wow. Angela, I mean, I had been, studying, the work of Ingo Swann, then Hal Puthoff, and a lot of other, individuals in this domain. And, I have observed that their work, to an extent, has brought, a kind of a structure to ESP by creating something which is measurable, or you can say measurable protocols. Now, I would want to know, at Fort Meade, can you walk us through the actual process of remote viewing session during your time,
When,
working at Fort
when
Meade?
I was brought into the program,
Mm-hmm.
I did extended remote viewing. Extended remote viewing was there before coordinate remote viewing. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Extended remote viewing is nothing more than you close your eyes, you put yourself in a self hypnotic state, you meditate, and you pull up. They put a picture in an envelope. You put a picture in an envelope, and the remote viewer is asked to access and describe the picture in the envelope. So you kind of go down, meditate or whatever, you bring up a picture, you come out, you write a report, you draw a picture, and then you see if it matches what's in the envelope. There's a book out called The Silva Mind Control by Dr. Jose Silva. If people want to know how to remote view, That's the book to get, because I was waiting for my clearances to be passed from Army intelligence to DIA when I got picked up as a psychic. And I bought this book because I thought, well, let me read it. It'll be something maybe to do before I get into the program. When I read the book and I went into the program, it's the same thing. Okay. It's like you just close. Now, there was a method called coordinate remote viewing. And what the government did, what the US government did, is they went out to Stanford Research, DIA, and they asked Stanford Research to put a manual together and explain remote viewing, because every time they went to ask Congress for money, they were being laughed at. So the Stanford Research gave Ingo Swann that project, and they said, explain how it works, give us something that takes it out of this esoteric realm. They don't want to hear psychics, and they don't want to hear karma. They don't want to hear that. So everybody associates Ingo Swann with coordinate remote viewing. Ingo Swann does not own coordinate. The US government tasked SRI, Stanford Research Institute. They gave them the money to come up with something, and Stanford Research tasked Ingo. Ingo was on staff. Now, the coordinate remote viewing manual and the information is property of the US government. The US government paid for it. So it's not an Ingo thing, it's not an SRI thing, it's a government, it is owned by the government. When people that did CRV, when they retired from the program, they went out and they started teaching it. Now, they started teaching it as coordinate remote viewing, but I have noticed that now it is called controlled remote viewing. So there had to have been something legal where they had to change the name from coordinate remote viewing to controlled remote viewing. There had to have been. So now they're calling it controlled remote viewing. And what Ingo said is that you can remote view in steps. The first step, you get a major gestalt, maybe like a circle or a point. And then the second one, you may be able to smell something. And it's in steps. The military is really big on training. I know because I've worked for the military organization before I got there. I continued my service with the government after the program was closed down in 1995. So, and it's training. You take training. And I think that the military in the unit got a hold of that manual and made it their bait. Well, this is how you remote view. And they used it thinking that you can bring people in. And if you use this manual, you can train people to do remote viewing. Well, you can, and you can train a person, but you still need somebody that you need a natural. But anyway, it was really an issue. I mean, Congress would say, get the real people in there. Why wouldn't you? And the Army people thought you could bring anybody in, and that's what they were doing, because at the time we were a special access program, and you couldn't go out on the street and advertise for this job. You couldn't do it. You had to look for people who you thought maybe work, and that's what they were doing. Well, that's what the military were doing to try to bring people into the field. Well, the one guy was friends with his neighbor and said, hey, come to my office. I think I have a job for you. And that's how it was being brought in. And it wasn't, and they were doing a basic psychology test. I think it was Myers-Briggs. And if you ended up perceptive, they thought you would make a better remote viewer, which isn't necessarily true. They found in the long run. So that's how the Army was bringing people in. Now, Stanford Research Institute, they had a whole different way of bringing their people in. They went to San Francisco and started to test all the hippies left over from the 1960s. And they were actually getting better results than what the Army was getting. Mm-hmm. So as far as coordinate remote viewing, I never did it. I couldn't, I just didn't do it. because I was trained in extended remote viewing, and plus I was doing automatic writing or channeling, which is more verbal and written. And I ended up, that was my natural ability. And I actually ended up doing that after some management left that allowed me to use my own ability. So I don't
Angela.
know. I
Mhm.
don't know how coordinate remote viewing, I just, it wasn't for me. It wasn't for me.
Mhm. Mhm. So, Angela, are you saying all psychics are remote viewers or all remote viewers have psychic ability? What is it? What are your thoughts?
I think anybody could, ask the question again.
Yeah, I mean,
I would say
are
all
all psychics remote
I would say
viewers?
all psychics are remote viewers, but I wouldn't say all remote viewers are psychic. Remote viewing is only a technique. Remote viewing is a technique. Put the picture in the envelope. Tell me what's in access and describe the picture. It's a technique. Now, if somebody becomes psychic or if they develop naturally, there's a whole evolvement. There's a spirituality that goes with it. There's there's an evolvement goes with it, and people start questioning things, and sometimes you may go against what you were taught and brought up as a child. I mean, your outlook on religion changes, things change. Well, when you put that into a military structure or a military system, it, it can get scary. So the military liked the idea of remote viewing, with the coordinate remote viewing, because it could make sense to them that it was some type of, you could measure it in some way, and it made them happy, and it didn't go against their religion, because I work with a lot of Mormons, and Mormons aren't going to go for this, for remote.
Mm-hmm.
So it was, yeah. I would have gone
Mm-hmm.
more for, I would have gone more for the psych, I would have gone more for the psychics. They could go further. There was
Mm-hmm.
one man I did not work with, but I know him, Joe McMonagle. He was a natural psychic.
Yes.
He could find people. I was good at finding people, locational work.
I mean, whatever uh, things that Joe McMonagle had said, I mean, his work in this domain, what I perceive, I mean, based on the kind of work and, things that he has done, I personally feel he suggests that remote viewing is a kind of a disciplined mental focus. I mean, if that makes sense. And that's what
Yeah.
even, Paul H. Smith also in some ways, advocates and suggests. I would want to know, Angela, how did you train your consciousness to stay passive enough to receive impressions, but
Well,
focused enough to remain on a target?
that when I went into the program, that's what they had. There was a man there who was my trainer, and that
Mm-hmm.
we would just I mean, we would go in, and it was just, we would work. Here's a picture in an envelope, and I lay down, and you get do exercises, you think, and then you see the picture, and then you come out and you report it, and it's just, you just, I just learned how to relax, and I don't know. I think anybody can do that. I think the CRV is very difficult. But yeah, I teach remote viewing one. I teach people go down, turn off the Zoom. I teach on Zoom, and I let people, I say, go down, relax for 10, 12, 15 minutes, and then come back and just tell me what you got. And they do, and they do good. And you can tell, like, they're good on the first target. The second target, they do okay. And then by the third target, it's getting late and everybody's getting tired, and there may be a few more not as well, but you can do it. You can do it.
Mm-hmm.
And Stanford Research Institute, the way that they studied remote viewing, there are certain pictures or targets. They called the pictures the target, and the pictures belong to a target pool. There are some pictures that are very conducive for remote viewing. And that's what we're, like, why, when I give remote viewers this target, they're all hitting, 90%. But why am I, when I give remote viewers this target, they can't get 50% right? It's because certain pictures are very conducive to remote viewing. A lot of times it's shapes, it's colors. So if you're going into an operational mode and you're trying to gather information from me on a on an op then you have to make that tasking conducive to the remote viewer. So is there something around there that if you're looking, is there something there that the remote viewer can latch onto to let you know that they're at the right place where you want them to be? So there was a lot of work, there was a lot of studying put in to help the viewer. If you're going to take a viewer into a room and you want information from them, you want them to do well, and then you have to make it conducive. You're not going to set them up for failure. You don't want to set them up for failure. Now, we had people that think that they could pull any target or do whatever they wanted, and some of the targets were not conducive for remote viewing. So it's a group effort. It's a group effort.
True. Angela, I have observed that the Western model of mind is very closed, very sealed. And on the other side, we see a lot of technological advancement. Then there is, religion there, God is the ultimate authority. There is this idea of purgatory, then sin and heaven and hell. And when you delve into demonology, I mean the subject demonology and religion, I have personally come across a lot of accounts, where psychics were just, killed. Psychic communities were erased. Now, it is fascinating to see that, once these things were demonized, religion was based by demonizing these things, that the authority is only in one sky daddy somewhere. Okay, people can believe that. And that's it. I mean, you can't have the abilities. I mean, some who might have had a good networking or marketing, they became saints, with their precognition and other things. But in general, these things were very demonized, and such individuals were removed from the society. I would want to know, what are your thoughts, Angela, because it's very contradictory. Highly evolved country, I mean, doing good, coming up with lots of research and everything. But on the same, contrary, if you see, they are getting into these things like Operation Paperclip, MK Ultra, Stargate, and these things. So, what are your thoughts? I mean, is religion a kind of a cover up so that people can study these things? What are your thoughts?
Oh, I think religion stops it. People that are religious, they don't want this. It's you need people that think out of the box. I mean, people that are bringing, oh no, religion would stop it. Religion would stop it. But people that think out of the box, they're going to want to use psychics. They're going to want to use any means. I mean, the intelligence community collects information. They love to collect information. They will use any means possible to collect information, because that's what intelligence does. NSA, they always got something up their mind. How can we collect? And try to make another system, try something new. Let's collect information. I think that it's the religion that stops this. It's the religion that puts the sin on it. It's the religious people that put the sin on the psychics. That they make,
Mm-hmm.
that's bad. That's not good. That's bad. It's a mental thing. Being psychic is mental. It's a part of my brain. There's a part of my brain that allows me that can do this. It's my makeup. It's my brain. When a
Mm-hmm.
psychic performs a psychic feat, the information comes to the brain. It's a mental feat. So the information's coming to the brain. Whether the remote viewer draws, like in remote viewing, whether they use tarot cards, whether they use runes, whether they use the crystal ball, that is the manifestation of the information. And every psychic works the same way. It hits a certain part of the brain, and from that, you go from there. Now, I'm not an engineer, I'm not a mathematician, I'm not a scientist, because that part of my brain, it's just over here a little bit, and it's just a little bit more difficult for me to do those kind of tasks. So I mean, I just think that it's people, it's a lot of fear based. I think that there was a lot of, I think Pope Constantine in the 15th century, I think there were a lot of things that were taken out of the
Mm-hmm.
church. There were a lot of things taken out of, look at the Bible. The Bible was written based on St. Paul. Paul was the man who was a soldier and he fell off a horse and he became blind and then he could see again through this healing. And then he believed in Jesus Christ and he, and taught the word. Well, people say if the Pope decided to use St. Paul's version of the Bible. Well, if the Pope decided to use the version by, say, maybe St. James or St. John, you would have a different version of the Bible because these two gentlemen, they grew up with Jesus as children. So you would have a whole different story. And then, of course, the Israeli tribes, Jesus was an Essene, so he belonged to the Essene tribe. And that tribe was mostly made up of women who were healers and women, and they were vegetarians. They did not kill the animals. They did not sacrifice animals in the temple. Now, when you read the Bible, they talk about the 12 tribes, but they don't mention the Essenes. They talk about the sacrificing of the animals for slaughter. So I don't think we have all the information. I don't know if we ever will, but we just have to be more open and just think in different ways. Now, the Western world is very it's fear-based. It's very fear-based. I mean, people always, when I give readings, people come to me for readings, and then then all of a sudden they, oh, well, read my friend, or I have a cousin that would like a reading. And when it gets to that level, if I'm reading friends and cousins and relatives that never had a reading before, you could I don't even you can tell they may be a little bit more in fear. They don't know what to ask. I don't need it. If you come to me, know what you're getting into. So a lot of times I kind of back away from that, but I do think it's a lot of fear-based.
Mm-hmm.
I think now the Soviets, what we had learned through the years is the program closed in the Soviet Union fell. The end of the Cold War ended in 1991. So we were able to get our scientists up into Russia to meet with the former Soviet Union's psychics, scientists. And in 2015, a book came out of that because of those visits. And what they found out was that the Russians, they didn't have a problem funding their psychics or putting money into the research because the Soviet Union has a long history of shamanism. So the Soviet Union when they were funding their psychics and their parapsychology researchers, they didn't have that block. They were just funding them, go do your thing. Come back and tell us what information you came up with. Where for us in the United States, it was a constant fight. It was a constant fight to get the money to keep the program open. And there were distractors all the time that wanted to close the program.
Mm-hmm.
It went against. And if a person does not believe in this, they're not going to, if this goes again, if collecting information by mental means goes against a person's belief system, they're not going to accept it. They're not going to accept it. We were better off dealing with somebody that was skeptic. At least skeptics remain neutral. We didn't need people either who just loved to, who really thought it was great, because then they thought we were going to be 100% right. So it was better just if you had a skeptic, it was a better environment to work with.
Absolutely. In my personal experience, Angela, I have been, having a lot of experiences of all nature and variety since childhood. And as I mentioned, I did turn towards religion for answers, but I didn't get it. Neither, those faculties were enhanced or it evolved. No, I mean, it was shunned, it was dismissed, and I was gaslit in return that there is something wrong with you. It's some kind of a bad thing. Uh, there came a point that I had to literally let go of my religious belief system because it was not serving me and it was not letting me explore. Only when I did shed that, I mean, there was, a period where I was very religious, 5 times prayer and everything, did my pilgrimage and everything. But, I was not convinced. It was just that I was in the rat race. I had to do it because others are doing. I mean, that's it. I mean, I was not doing it because I was genuinely, not able to establish that connection. Though they said that this is how you establish it, but I never had any experience. But I had experiences which are categorized specifically by the religious institution or the religious scripture as demonic or evil. I had a NDE experience. I came across an entity. I mean, it's worshipped in India as Kali. She is the destroyer of ego, she's the destroyer of evil. And I came across her, and it literally made me feel good. I had some good takeaway. It was not like, just a dream and that's it. I felt energized and I was a different person. Now, I would want to know, Angela, are you religious at this point of time? And has being religious helped you evolve into this domain, or not being religious has evolved you? I mean, helped you evolve in this domain?
Um, well, when I first kind of became psychic and recognized it, and especially with my channeling, I mean, it did
Mm,
not take away from my religion. Like the religion teaches you be good, be kind, don't lie, don't swear. It did. When I became psychic and I channeled and I was working with entities, it did not take away anything from my religious background, and that was fine. I mean, and that and that and Jesus was our I guess he was the son of God, and God, and it didn't take away anything from my religion. However, once I became spiritual and I started to learn more and more, um, I had a problem with reincarnation. I had a problem accepting that because of my religion. And so I kind of, it took me a while to really get into this reincarnation and how we can come back, and that we are with the same group karma, or we go over and we meet our loved ones because we're with the same karma. And once I could get into the acceptance of karma, then I really blossomed as a psych. I could see more. I could explain things more. So I think it was that point that I just let the religion. I had to let the religion go. At
mhm,
that point, I had to let it go because it was holding me back. But I mean, I have been in church for family weddings, for family funerals. I was born and raised Catholic. I'm Italian, but it just I've listened to sermons. It just doesn't. It just I just like being spirit. I found other ways. I don't know. I just the
whatever works.
spiritualism did not take away from the religious, but I had to drop the religion to keep going. For my evolvement, I had to let go of the religion.
Mhm. Now, here is something interesting from my experience that I would like to share with you, Angela, is that I meditate on people. Whenever I try to connect with people, I meditate with people. And, ever since I started this podcast, I do, meditate on them. I just create a mental imagery and then I meditate. And if I doze off, it's fine. I'll come back with some kind of answer or not. But I was meditating on you, and I did see you in a very red color outfit, and I saw you with a white animal. I don't know if it was cat, dog, pigeon, whatever it was. And I saw you in that form, I mean red outfit with a white little pet around you, roaming around. And I was like, I need to, ask her, what is it? What is this mystery with the red and the white, fur balls around her? So if you could, tell us, I mean, Angela, I mean, what's this with the red? I hope I'm going in the good, right direction.
Well, I do have a red sweater I wear, and it's very bright. But yeah, I was told that my aura is mainly red. So
Wow.
red is a very important color for me. And yes, I do have two cats. One cat is white and black, and one is gray. No, one is white and black, and one is gray and white. They're both white, but the
Wow.
black and white is
Mm-hmm.
more white than black.
Mm-hmm.
So you could have been picking up on the black and white.
Uh-huh. And one more interesting thing I have personally experienced, and that really scared, I'm sorry for my language, that really scared the shit out of me, Angela. I was, remote viewing a couple of individuals, and I saw things which did not look humanoid. If you could actually, tell us and tell my viewers, because I'm running short of, words to explain that they were not human, they were not bipedal, they were not humanoid. Are there entities that we get to see, or are there creatures or some
I'm
life form
sure.
that we get to see?
Oh, I'm sure that there's life on other planets. I mean, I'm sure that there's other life forms. If they're not on Earth, you could be picking them up in the spirit realm. You could be picking them up on in another realm. But yeah, you can pick. I mean, look at the little ETs that people talk about, the grays under the ground or whatever. So you can be picking up. Of course, you can see. You can see. They're probably entities in another realm. But you can what
Hmm.
you can do.
Angela, you being an expert remote viewer, have you ever encountered aliens? Have you ever encountered
Yeah,
extraterrestrials?
I had two UFO experiences and one ET experience.
And what were they like? What was the
They
UFO
were very,
experience?
let um the first UFO was kind of exciting. I was 12 or 13 years old. We were young. A bunch of us were playing baseball. And it was at dusk where we saw the UFO. We saw UFO hover over us. And so that was exciting. And then the second one I saw in 2010, and that was okay. But I did see, like, I think I saw a little ET. It's like I went through a
Wow.
portal and had this experience, but I was like I knew him from before. I guess I don't know. It was weird because I when I saw him, I when I saw this guy, I said something like, I don't know. I felt like I said something like, "Hi, how are you?" Or I felt like I was with it. It just felt natural. I don't know. It just felt natural. It did not scare me.
So were you trying to connect and were you trying to
No,
view them, or it just came
no, it just
randomly?
happened. It just happened. It's like you go through a portal.
Mm-hmm.
No, it just happened.
Mm-hmm. Now, Angela, in trauma therapy, heightened intuition often emerges after emotional crisis. That's what I have studied and what I have observed. I would want to know, do you believe
Yeah,
trauma or extreme life experiences can open a person to
yes,
ESP
yes,
or some
yes,
other ability?
yes. Because when I learned metaphysics, after I opened up, I did go to a metaphysical class, took a metaphysical class or whatever. And oh, absolutely, they say that um, like um, a death, a loss of money, a divorce. These things can lead. Yes, something is going to shake you up. Absolutely. Something's going to shake you up. It opens you up. It opens up the chakra centers. So, yes, absolutely. But then sometimes people just open up. It just depends on the circumstances where some people just may, I don't know. But
Are you
yes,
saying that some are
yes,
born with it?
some people are just born with it. Absolutely. I know people that just open up and don't know why. But then if you look at their astrology chart, it's like it's in them. So it depends. But yes, trauma can bring it out. Absolutely, trauma can bring it out.
Mhm. Angela, you had, been working with Stargate, that project for quite some time, and you must have, remote viewed a lot of things. What was the most controversial thing that you remote viewed? I mean, whether you were sanctioned or whether you were instructed or it was out of curiosity. If you could share, any of your crazy experiences while remote viewing.
Man, I think I had crazier experiences when I wasn't remote viewing because of the out of body. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I can remember one time being at the job and going out of body and being just somewhere that I don't know if it was I don't know if it was missiles underground. I don't know what it was, but it was eerie. It was very eerie. It was a very eerie, it kind of gave you like this feeling like, oh my goodness, we could, it was very eerie. It was different. It was just a different feeling. Like, we have this choice. Do we have this choice to be good or bad? We have this choice. It's, I don't know. It just something came over me that just sort of, um, I don't know. I guess we just have choices. We have free wills and free will. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that it was an eerie feeling, like which way do we go with this? What are decisions going to be made to go with this? It was just
Mm-hmm.
different. It's different.
Mm-hmm. Angela, researchers like Russell Targ and Dean Radin, they suggest consciousness may be a kind of a quantum field. Now, I would want to know, with your years of experience, how do you define consciousness? And, is it something which is localized, or do we literally exist elsewhere at once? What are your thoughts?
I think that I think that we exist elsewhere because I've known people that have maybe bilocated or I think it's consciousness is outside of ourselves and that it's connected. But a lot of hardcore scientists, they think consciousness is only in the brain. But no, I think it's out. I think it's we're all connected somehow. What do you think?
Mm-hmm.
What do you think?
I think, we can be a part of a, something, that is out there. We can be, something that we all are connected. I mean, we all are connected in some ways, but we are a fragment and we can access that, higher self or that collective, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. We're separate, but we're the same. If that makes
I
sense.
I agree. Yes, 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 absolutely.
But
Now,
it's a hard thing. It's a hard thing for scientists. It's a hard thing for scientists to prove. But
mhm,
again, but a lot of scientists are not quantum physics. I mean, I think quantum physics may explain it, but a lot of scientists I work with, they're not into quantum physics.
mhm,
So
true.
I don't know.
Mhm. Angela, non-local perception in a way raises ethical consideration about privacy and interference. Whenever, there are, a couple of people that I know, when I talk about remote viewing and psychic ability, they literally get, terrified, they are scared. I would want to know, what are your thoughts? How do you define ethical boundaries in remote viewing, especially when, perceiving people or sensitive targets? What are your thoughts, Angela?
Anymore, I just feel that if somebody has a question and they want to come and they want to ask me a question, you know, I'll give them a session. I don't go looking for I just don't go looking for it. I don't want to go out and just read somebody's mind just to know what they're thinking. I, I just I just wouldn't do that. Um, Now, a lot of times people get very upset if they know that you're psychic. They start getting fidgety and nervous because they think you can read their mind. Now, the thing is I need a focus. If I'm with people and you're chattering and you're visiting, I'm not gonna, you can't just you need a focus. When you give a reading, you need a focus. So to say I need a focus, I mean, I just don't walk in and you walk into a room and everybody's there. Well, there's all these random thoughts and all of this and all of that. You need time to focus in, like to figure out what's going on. But but I have found that if if people do not want you to know something about them, you're not going to get it psychically. You're not going to get it. If somebody's going to block you from if they have information and they don't want you to have it, and they're afraid that you're going to get it in a psychic reading or you're going to pick it up psychically, you're not going to get it because they're blocking. In order for me to do a reading, in order for me to have a successful reading, and in order for me to be good at what I'm doing, and I'm one with a person, I need that person to be open and honest. If you start hiding something from me or you don't want me to see something, I'm not going to see it. I'm not going to see it. It's not going to happen. Now, sometimes when I give a reading, I usually start and I tell people things that I see around them, but then people have their own agenda on their mind. So after I tell them a little bit about themselves, then they start asking questions. Now, sometimes, you're in a reading and you get information, people are asking questions, and then you end the reading, and then these people go out and something happens. Then they may get upset because you missed something. Like, well, why didn't you tell me this? Because I didn't see it. I'm only telling you what I see. I can tell you what I see. I can't tell you what I don't see. And what you think is important to me, as I'm receiving information from the other side or from the universe, it may not be the most important information. People have questions, so their questions are important. But if something more important comes in other than those questions, they have a hard time accepting that. It's like they have to leave the session, go out and live, and then they get it. So I report what I see. I can only tell you what I see. If I'm giving you a reading and you don't want me to know something, I'm not going to get it. It just doesn't work that way. I can remember whenever I left the psychic program, they closed it in 1995, and I had to go back to the Defense Intelligence Agency's headquarters to work as an analyst. And I worked with a group of people, and everybody was real friendly and real nice, but they weren't really nice or friendly to me. And this went on for a long, long time. And finally, I asked the girl that sat next to me, I said, I don't know if you've ever noticed. I said, but people don't really talk to me like they talk to you, or everybody seems to be really chummy. But sometimes I feel left out. Well, she started laughing and she said, Angela, they're afraid of you. They think you're reading their mind or something. And I'm not. So
Mm-hmm.
it's on them. It's on them. It's on them.
True.
And then a lot of people, they'll say, well, what do you see for this or that? And you need the focus. You need the focus. I need my tools. I need, you know,
True.
but you're not going to get it. If somebody's blocking information, you're not going to get it. Private people are hard to read. Sometimes people are just private. They're very hard to read.
Mm-hmm. True. Angela, remote viewing often brings viewers face to face with situations that are intense, strange, or even terrifying in my experience. Can you share one of the most chilling or unforgettable remote viewing experience that truly sent shivers down your spine? I mean, I hope I'm not getting very personal. If you could share
I
something.
can't remember. I think probably the hostages. That I think when we had hostages in Lebanon back in the 1980s, I think that was very intense, very very intense. Um, trying to locate trying to locate hostages, what they had to go through, the ordeals that they had to go through. That was probably that was very intense, very intense.
Mm-hmm. True. Angela, have you tried remote viewing heaven or hell or God or demon?
Oh, sure, sure.
What
You
was it
just get
like?
nice,
Is
nice,
is it the
nice.
same way it is described in the books or it's different?
I just think that it's just nice to be somewhere else other than I don't know. It's more, I would say, more higher levels. I don't know if I even believe in hell. I just believe that, there's levels, I guess. But I do, yeah, I feel like energies. I feel like I've energy. It's not so much, it's what you feel, energy. Have you ever listened to a
Mm-hmm.
meditation tape? It makes you nice.
Mm-hmm. True. Angela, I personally feel my consciousness was very much influenced by the religion that I grew up in the childhood. It had left a lot of, these binary things in my head, that there has got to be a good and a bad, and the bad one is scary, and the good one is very good and kind and loving. But upon remote viewing some of the bizarre things, it's totally different. It's not the way how people tell you things are. I personally, I was remote viewing, a time period that was between 600 to 700 AD, and I was really curious to understand and see how our religion was started, and how was it back then in olden time. And it was fascinating that it's nowhere close. I saw greenery in Arab. It was all green. There were springs and water, and it was not just dry and sandy. And I could feel a little slimy thing. I mean, and I also felt as if there was some smell, gaminess of meat, and I was actually viewing a meat shop in Arab. Now my question to you is, Angela, sometimes is it just the image that we see, or with practice you get to smell, you get to
Sure,
feel
yeah,
things?
you're getting it different if you remote view it, because if it's ever written about, it's being taken from a historical perspective. But when you remote view it, you're seeing it totally different.
Hmm.
Absolutely, it's just totally different. Because when people write about it, they're taking it from a historic perspective. So when you remote view it, it's going to be totally different. It's probably more authentic. You're getting the real thing there.
Angela, can two remote viewers meet
Sure, I think so.
in some other dimension while remote viewing?
Yeah, I think so. That's never happened to me, but I believe it. I believe it can. I believe it does,
Hmm.
and it does. I mean, Monroe. A lot of times, people from that will happen to people from Monroe.
Okay, interesting. Angela, some remote viewers, including Joe McMonigal, have reported impressions of non-human entities. Oh God, this is so scary. Where did you vanish?
It just, you know what? I've got a week. I'm downstairs in my basement and with my computer. I think I have a week. But I've been having problems with Zoom. It just kicked out. But go ahead. What were you
Mhm.
asking?
Yeah, I wanted to know, Angela, some remote viewers, including Joe McMonigal, have reported impressions of non-human entities, in their
Oh,
practice.
sure.
Based on your experience, have you ever encountered indications of alien life or some kind of intelligence? And how do you interpret such experiences and information responsibly?
Well, I don't know. Like I said, I had that one. I think it was a great experience. I felt like it was a mental thing. I don't. I just let these things happen. I mean, what do you mean? Like report it how?
I mean, in the work of Joe McMonigal, he has reported impressions of non-human entities also when he
Yes,
was remote viewing. Humans and, subjects and other things. He reported something that was not human. So I just wanted to know, have you also seen something like
yes,
that while
yeah,
remote viewing?
yeah. But it's but that yes. But that's not the target. When people ask me to remote view for the government, I have government targets I have to get to. Those that's not there. When you start remote viewing like non-human that's not a target that the US government would give me. They were giving me military sites. They were giving me hostages. I wasn't in my job as a US government psychic. I wasn't asked to access and describe these non-human like forms. If they came in, they came in, but it wasn't part of the operation. Now, on my own, yes, when you dream, when you remote view, yeah, you can get those entities. There's somewhere on the, it's like there's a veil. We're here and there's a thin veil, and you've got these, everything else is on the other side. I'm sure that that they're out there they're out there in the universe and they exist. Absolutely. But they weren't part of my operational to give information out as to where hostages are, where weapons are. That's they weren't there. They're not part of that. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
If I have an analyst that's looking for a hostage, they want to know where he is. If a non-humanoid comes in, I can't put that in the report. He's got to move aside. I got to get to the location.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not saying
Angela.
that these things don't exist, because they do exist. There's a lot that exists that we don't understand about. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, there are non-human. I mean, God, there's so much we don't know. Or I mean, there's people get images of dinosaurs, anything.
Mm-hmm. Angela, you must be a curious girl as well at some
I
point. I
was.
mean,
It
when
was. I was at some point.
yeah. Now,
Not
I
no,
would
I'm
want to
so
know, mhm. I would want to know, Angela, did you try remote viewing our future of humanity, or the past? If you could share some of your insight and
well, first
experience.
of all, I don't know. When you remote view the past and the present, it's easy to get the information because the footprint is there. It's
Mm,
hard to remote view the future because the future changes. Future change.
mhm,
It's up to us. We're at a time right now, humanity is at a time, it's up to us. Either we're going to make it or we're not going to make it. And that's hard because when I try to remote view the future, I do not see it. And it's meaning that we're at a junction, and what are we going to do as humans? And it's scary. Now we have AI. Now we have consciousness. Now we have AI, and consciousness is getting very, very close. What if the AI grabs up the consciousness? We're going to lose our divinity. So how do we get? I mean, it's a scary time. It's a very scary time. It's an important time, and every time I try to remote view the future, it's up to us. It's we're right at the point. It's up to us. What are we going to do? Because we have free will. So I
mm,
really can't. I mean, it's you know I don't know. I don't know. And living in the United States is difficult. We're very polarized. Um, I think that people were more spiritual 20, 30 years ago. I don't know. People aren't on. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, and I don't want to judge people. You never underestimate the power of a person. I don't know. Have you ever remote viewed the future?
no, I can't. I mean,
I
it's very
can't.
difficult. It's very
Very, very
difficult.
difficult. We can go in so many different directions. You can go. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, we're right now. We're here. We can go in so many directions, and it's going to be. It's us. It's up to us. It's our minds, and what we do is going to say what the future is. But it's consciousness and technology right now. And if it catches up, will we lose our divinity?
True. I think we will. Angela, one of my skeptic friend often asks me, why don't you help me win a lottery?
Because you can't.
And
Because the remote viewing mind does not get numbers. Okay.
Hmm,
When you remote view and when somebody's psychic, you are receiving conceptually. You receive information conceptually. You are receiving the lower right part of the brain is what's receiving. That is triggered. That enables you to collect psychic information. That is the creative part of the brain. It is good for writing and drawing and remote viewing. If you want numbers, you got to go to a whole different part of the brain that doesn't work psychically. So, what people have tried to do is they've tried to make pictures numbers. So, there's ways you can do it. And I think they called it associate remote viewing, where pictures will mean something. But because psychic information is conceptual, it's conceptual. It's not yes and no, it's not black and white, it's not yin and yang. A lot of times when women are pregnant, I can't even tell if they're going to have a boy or a girl because it's black and white. Remote viewers with psychics can't, they don't think like that. Unless
Mm-hmm.
if it comes in very, very strong, oh, it's a boy. But that's why. It's a different part of the brain. It's a whole different hookup.
Mm-hmm. True. Angela, remote viewing seems to offer not just intelligence, but a kind of a profound insight into human potential. That's how I view remote viewing. What are your thoughts? I mean, do you believe it is the ultimate lesson, or there is some kind of a purpose behind developing remote viewing abilities, which is beyond intelligence gathering? What are your thoughts?
Probably you could there's reasons for it. Oh, sure. Oh, sure. Sure. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. They just use, yeah. Oh, absolutely. Even being a psychic, you're gathering information for a person, but my goodness, there's more to it than that. I mean, you can influence, you can pray. Oh, there's much more to it. Absolutely.
So, Angela, according to you, we can't go any further in the future when it comes to remote viewing, but we can easily go back in the past.
No, no.
And
If you
why do you think
no,
that
you
is? Mhm.
you can go into the future in remote viewing.
How
You
far?
can. I don't know. I don't know. I don't. You can go for 30 years. Who I don't know. If you see it, you see it. You report it. But sometimes you can't see it. I can remember when I channel. Sometimes I can go into the future, maybe on an issue or maybe for a person. But I don't know if I can do it for all humanity at this point. But when you read somebody or you remote view, the past and the future, the footprint's there. It happened, it's happening. You can gather that information much more easily. But the future has not happened yet. So the footprint isn't there. That would be harder to predict. And the future can change. I can say one thing that maybe today is meant to happen, but 2 days from now, maybe it just changes and goes into another direction.
So true.
So I'm not saying you cannot read the future because you can, and I have read the future. I've read the future for myself. I've read the future for other people. Sometimes I see it, sometimes I don't. It's and there's a higher power too, and the higher power is going to get that allows you to see what you're going to see and not see. So I don't
Mm-hmm.
have the answers. It's just you remote view and do the best you can. That's the only thing you
Mm-hmm.
can do.
Mm-hmm. Angela, some experiences are so unusual that they literally burn. Okay, let me rephrase. Angela, there are some of the experiences that are so unusual, they literally blur the line between intelligence work and the paranormal. I would want to know I mean, have you ever encountered a session that made you question reality itself or left a lasting emotional imprint where you were literally questioning, is this even real what I'm seeing, or is just my mind making up things, or just, creating scenarios and giving me some kind of an image?
I don't know. I find that difficult to answer. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. God, if remote view, so I don't know. I mean, we've all had different things. Different things can happen in a remote viewing session. I just don't know how to answer that.
Hmm. And what is your experience as a channeler, Angela, you were a remote viewer. What is your experience as a channeler? Have you channeled something that was not human or not a soul or
Yeah,
something
that's how
else?
you channel. You have entities. Of course, you channel through entities. Yeah.
And did you experience always good or sometimes some
Always
crazy
good.
ones, some
Good.
wacky ones?
Good. I've had good experiences. Good. Good.
Is that in your control, Angela? Because sometimes it goes wrong with me and with my friends. I mean, how do you
No,
control that? How do
I
you
don't.
welcome just the good one?
I just don't. I don't. I don't. It just
Mhm,
happens. If you get bad ones, just step away from it, or I don't. Just I don't know. I don't
mhm.
know. Just question it, I guess, or just say, "Be good." I don't know. I don't know. Do
Cool.
you
So,
channel?
Angela, yeah, I do sometimes, and it gets really scary. Or maybe my mind is not that open. So when I channel, it's very difficult for my brain to perceive it, what I'm channeling. So I think it's based on my level of exposure. Once I'm more exposed, I think it will not be an odd thing, a weird thing for me, or I won't be scared of things. I mean, with time, yes, I am no more scared of things. But yeah, at times I do, experience things that are coming through which are very different on an emotional level. And that is something that really scares me. But yeah, I mean, there is a part in me that tells them that you may go, you may leave in peace. And that's how, we end it. But I think it's based on my exposure. I think the more I do it, it'll be better for me. It'll not be an alien thing for me because I'm still in my 40s. So I think I've got a long way. You guys are experienced folks. You guys have done a hell lot of things, helped people, explored remote viewing, you give readings. I would want to know, Angela, can deceased relatives and loved ones be channeled, or can
Yeah.
pet be channeled?
Can what be channeled?
Can pets be
Yeah.
channeled?
Oh, absolutely. It's in from. Yep. Absolutely.
And
Yeah. I
how does
mean,
that happen?
you channel. Channel. Somebody will say, "Tell me about my Aunt Rosie." You just channel it. Tell me about my dead dog. You just do it. It's the same. It's just it's the hookup is all the same.
Wow. So they are all there. I mean, it's just that we have to tap into them. We
Tap
have to
into
establish
it.
a
Yeah.
connection. It's not
And
that they are dead and gone in some purgatory or
no,
somewhere.
have some. You do it. If you channel, have somebody ask you about their dead animal
Mm-hmm.
or the dead. You see what you get.
Mm-hmm. So
See what,
true. So, Angela, I mean, of course, we have, come to an end of today's podcast. So, Angela, what would you like to suggest all the individuals who are psychic and exploring remote viewing domain? What are your suggestions for those
just if
folks
you're
who are
very if
getting interested?
if you decide that you're interested in this and you want to pursue the field, pursue it and don't be fear based and make the bet. I mean, I think people just get so fear based. You know, and look, read the books. There's institutes out there that can teach you things that can help you get over the fear, and that can help you to the next level. Because I think a lot of people, even people that I read in one-on-one, I feel like, God, they're ready to go to the next level, or they're holding themselves back for whatever reason. So I try to recommend books, find out what's in their area. But I think you just if you want to just do. I mean, you have to. It's a process, and there's an education to it. It's
Mm-hmm.
it's a life of its own. And if you want to, because a
True.
lot of times people will pursue it only themselves, but you have to reach out. You have to know what you're working with. You need to be educated on it. It will just make things a lot better.
And yes, to all my subscribers, I'm going to mention, Angela's details. She teaches remote viewing also. So in case you guys need some course, you want to learn and explore this domain, you can reach out to her. Angela, thank you so much. It was
Oh,
so
Sarah, thank
wonderful.
you, thank you, thank you very, very much. You're quite talented yourself. Thank you very much.